because it takes some time for the U.S., the worst scenario we can have is the Iranians doing a preemptive attack on Israel and on the U.S. maybe before we attack. And this is something we have to be very aware of. Our intelligence needs to really follow what's going on. And Israel might find itself in a situation that it needs to attack even before the U.S. is ready. This is something that might happen. So the level of readiness in the Israeli intelligence and Air Force is very, very, very high.
Hey everyone, Amir Avivi, Brigadier General Amir Avivi, is one of the top security and defense experts in Israel. Not only was he a brigadier general in the Israeli army, he is the founder of the Israel Defense and Security Forum. He's also very plugged into the security establishment and to the IDF leadership and to Prime Minister Netanyahu's office. He serves as a kind of unofficial advisor. So when he talks about what to expect in the coming days and what might happen in Iran, we should pay very close attention because it probably reflects what's actually being talked about behind the scenes at the highest levels in Israel. So let's give a listen to Brigadier General Amir Avivi.
Since you last shared with us, a lot has happened in terms of Iran and the U.S. involvement with Iran, and everyone really wants the inside scoop behind the scenes. What exactly transpired? Did the U.S. do an about-face? Did Israel redirect what should happen? What can you share with us?
So I think that following the announcements of President Trump, the expectation of many people was, okay, tomorrow morning, 2 days, we'll have an attack. And when it didn't happen, people started thinking, maybe the U.S. is reconsidering, maybe there is a change of hearts and minds, But the reality, I think, is that from decision to action, the U.S., it takes time for the U.S. to really bring all the capabilities, finalize the planning, do the coordination, not only with Israel, also with other countries. And I think this is what we are seeing. I'm seeing inside Israel clear signs of big preparations. And I see the U.S. Amassing forces, and also Europe bringing capabilities and amassing forces in the Middle East. We see the last few days President Trump's rhetoric again more aggressive, again saying there needs to be a change of regime. And so there is a buildup, and it takes a bit of time. The U.S. In the Second World War decided in December 1941 it's joining the war following the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. The minute the U.S. decided it's joining the war, and then when did the first soldiers start fighting on North African land? It took 11 months. It took 11 months for the U.S. to organize and start fighting, in Europe and in Africa. Yes, they fought the Japanese faster than that, but for the U.S., it takes time to organize. It's not going to be 11 months. It's going to be probably much, much more faster the coming weeks probably, but there is a buildup, and we have to be aware of that. But in Israel, there is also a lot of preparations, looking at our air defense, looking at other capabilities we need to prepare. And I'm all the time worried about one thing. Because it takes some time for the U.S., the worst scenario we can have is the Iranians doing a preemptive attack on Israel and on the U.S. maybe before we attack. And this is something we have to be very aware of, and our intelligence needs to really follow what's going on. And Israel might find itself in a situation that it needs to attack even before the U.S. is ready. This is something that might happen. So the level of readiness in the Israeli intelligence and Air Force is very, very, very high, following anything that might happen, with the Iranians. And in Iran, the demonstrations are continuing. It's very hard to know exactly what is happening because they shut down the internet completely. So everything that we are getting from Iran is partial, and it's not the full picture, but it's all obvious that the regime is conducting a massacre against the demonstrators. There's thousands and thousands of people have been killed and arrested. There are executions. It's not something the world can allow to continue. And we have to really seize the moment. It's a one opportunity in history to bring down this regime. And when this regime will fall, everything will change. It's not only the Iranian regime that will change, and probably we'll have peace with Israel, but it's the fall of all the proxies. Hezbollah is completely dependent on Iranian money. Hamas, the same. They get the money from Iran. So this is going to accelerate dramatically also the fall of all the proxies of Iran. It will change completely the Middle East. So definitely something that needs to be pushed. And I think there is a clear understanding in Israel and the US that this is what needs to be done. Preparations, but I believe it won't be too long. There will be a moment when the attack will be launched. And let's look at the worst case scenario. If the US, God forbid, backs down and decides it doesn't help, okay, Israel is not going to miss the opportunity. Israel will attack. Why? Because we need to destroy all these sites anyway. It's a big danger to us. We cannot wait. And I don't think that President Trump wants to be viewed as somebody who promised, the Iranian people that help is on its way. He's going to help and then back down, and Israel will become the heroes that saved Iran and not the US. For me, it doesn't make sense that something like that would happen. And I think that I'm sure Prime Minister Netanyahu has said to President Trump crystal clear, Israel is going to attack anyway. I mean, we cannot allow this renewal of build-up of forces, and we cannot allow to miss the opportunity to bring down the regime. And we know how accurately Israel knows how to operate and how it can take out leaders. Or we saw it with Nasrallah, we saw it with Sinwar, we saw it all around the world, the Houthi government. It's definitely Israel can do it, but I think it needs to be a US-led attack, and I think the president understands that very well.
Wow. Okay. And now I cannot stress enough, Brigadier General Amir Avivi is one of the most well-connected security experts in Israel. When he says that he sees, to quote him here, big preparations happening in Israel, and what he believes Israel is preparing for, and what Israel wants to accomplish in this chaos and unrest and this opportunity to take down the Iranian regime, we need to listen very carefully. Let's just sum up what we heard there. First of all, he says that the absence of an immediate strike by the Americans doesn't mean that America has changed its mind. He stressed that the U.S. decision to act moves much more deliberately and slowly than what we're used to in Israel. The IDF tends to make decisions very quickly. He also says that there are visible, concrete signs of military buildup. He talks about these amassing forces of the U.S. in the Middle East, and that European capabilities are also being moved into place. And of course, the heightened Israeli preparations that he talks about, that he sees, that these are all clear indicators that there's something going on. Now, he also pointed out that President Trump's rhetoric has intensified, that his recent statements are calling for regime change, and these are indications that the U.S. is still engaged and doesn't expect the situation to just peter out. He also says that the expected timeline, and here we need to listen carefully and remember who's saying this, the expected timeline is weeks, not months. He explicitly rejected the idea that there will be long delays before action is taken. He also, of course, talks about how Israel is at maximum readiness and may have to act first if necessary, because the fear of a preemptive strike by the Iranian regime is significant. And again, Israel might attack first if circumstances demand it. And of course, he stresses the fact that this is a historic opportunity. This Iranian regime has been murdering Israelis and investing billions of dollars in the plans to destroy Israel and murder Israelis for decades and decades. Pretty much every war that Israel's been involved in since the beginning of the 1980s until today, every time there's been a flare-up, from the first Lebanon war to the second Lebanon war to everything that's happened in the Gaza Strip over the course of the last few decades, conflict after conflict, this is all a war with Iran. And he stresses the fact that we now have an opportunity, a unique opportunity. We haven't had such an opportunity to bring down the regime, and Israel is not going to allow this opportunity to pass by. So if the Americans decide to back off, if that would happen, Israel will act unilaterally. And again, when Brigadier General Amir Avivi says that, you can trust that this is a real plan. Bottom line, General Avivi's message is that it is not a question of if, but when there will be an attack on the regime, a decisive attack, and that the military preparations, the political signals, and everything else going on gives us indications of something happening in the near term. And he also said with confidence that he's pretty sure Prime Minister Netanyahu has made this clear to President Trump. So folks, as I've been saying for days now, this situation, even though it looks like the protests are petering out, this is far from over, and we still can be hopeful. We still can be hopeful that there will be crippling attacks on the regime to bring it finally to its knees once and for all. If you've been enjoying these videos, please make sure to check out all of my other content at Israel 365's YouTube channel.